Let's get back into what Labor is doing with your superannuation and what it might be planning to do with other taxes. Peter Dutton was ringing the alarm bells today.
You can understand why a lot of Australians are really scratching their head about a Prime Minister that they now can't trust, a Treasurer that they can't trust, and their own superannuation money is under attack from the Labor Party. We've now seen the first change of what I think will be many changes in the superannuation and tax space.
Yeah, Peter Dutton, 10 yards out, straight in front, slotting that one. It doesn't get easier for him. It's really a gift politically. Let me bring in Dimitri Burshtein, who's economist and contributor to The Australian. Good to talk to you again, Dimitri. Tell me just how bad this is to suddenly foist on people a sudden increase in superannuation tax that was ruled out less than a year ago.
It's not a good look. I mean, especially since only last week they announced an extensive consultation to define the purpose of superannuation, and this they just announced holus bolus. So
now the people being hit by this, there's people with $3 million of savings. Their retirement income is sitting there. They're looking to live off the earnings of that super. Have been taxed at 15%. It will double to 30%. Do they have many options? Will these people look at taking lump sums out and investing elsewhere, or are they pretty much stuck paying double the tax that they've paid until now?
Oh, it'll be horses for courses. Each individual will assess their own circumstance, I imagine. Some might take their money out, some might just leave it in. I mean, 30% is still concessional compared to the top marginal tax rate. And the reality is also that, you know, they're still the beneficiaries of dividend imputation, franking, and the capital gains tax discount.
Now, of course, this is a broken promise and it's a tax increase and it opens up Labor to scares about more tax increases. But is that area of super ripe for reform? Does someone need to look at it carefully and work out where some of those tax concessions should sort of cut in or taper out?
Well, my view is that, you know, there's always scope for tax reform, but you can't have tax reform until there's spending reform, because it'll only be seen as just another tax grab. There is so much waste in the Commonwealth budget that any touching of tax at the moment will just be seen for what it is, a tax grab.
Well, this is what I said at the top of the program. It's so obvious that the budget is out of control, and it's so obvious also, especially when you bring in the inflation challenge, that the way to deal with it has to be to curb government spending. But Labor seems to have no intention of constraining spending. Therefore, they're going to think we'll just try and suck in some more taxation revenue.
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, as I highlighted in my piece in The Australian today, if you just go through some of the headline areas of waste, you know, it was only less than 12 months ago, you know, highlighted Medicare fraud and waste up to $8 billion a year. NDIS fraud, $6 billion.
Don't say that so quickly. $8 billion a year just being defrauded. The government should be able to stop.
NDIS, Snowy 2.0 is expected to be up to $18 billion over budget. NBN was a $30 billion write-off and was at $3.5 billion to cancel the French subs. Now, the $2 billion a year additional tax revenue that this tax proposal will bring in at its peak won't even touch the sides when you're talking about some of these initiatives. And you also, as you kind of touched on there, you have to bring it into the context of inflation. At the same time, the RBA is trying to extract money from the economy. The government is signalling by ratcheting up taxes, they're going to spend some more.
Yeah. Tell me this then. We saw the Treasurer stumble and get confused and not want to rule anything out when he was asked about capital gains tax on the family home. Do you think Labor would be really silly enough to consider changes there?
It's unlikely. Now, you flagged earlier Jim Chalmers did his PhD on Paul Keating. Yeah. He did his PhD on the Prime Ministership of Paul Keating. Had he done his PhD on the Treasurership of Paul Keating, we might be having a different conversation.
He did bad Paul Keating. Good Paul Keating was the Treasurer, right?
Yes.
Bad Paul Keating was the Prime Minister. He did the wrong bit.
Yeah. I have a copy of his PhD. I've not read it, to be honest, but it was on the Prime Ministership rather than the Treasurership, and it might be a different Jim Chalmers today if he'd done that.
Flick me a copy of that, will you? I might have to read it for my columnising. Thanks for joining us, Dimitri. I appreciate it.
Chris.
Dimitri Burshtein there. This is going to be a problem for Labor all the way through. We're seeing their true colours now, aren't we?